What's going on, guys? It's Mighty, and today we're going to be talking about Infamous First Light. This is a standalone DLC-ish kind of thing from Infamous Second Son. It is DLC because it's downloadable content. It expands on the Infamous game, the Second Son game, but it isn't DLC in that it is a standalone product. You can play it without having ever played Infamous Second Son. The story stands on its own. But I kind of think that there's a big argument that for people that haven't played Second Son, you should still check this out, and then if you like it, then try Infamous Second Son. I don't know that I totally agree with that, because the story of this, it follows Fetch, which is one of the side characters in Infamous in Second Son that gives you the neon powers, and it follows her and kind of her backstory of how she got to where she was in Second Son. And it's a good story, but you get the gist of it during Second Son, and this is kind of just fleshing out some more of the details. So, if you played this and then went and played Second Son, her part of it where you're getting the SparkNotes version of her story, I feel like that would really be boring. And that's really what made her character stand out the most to me of, the three characters that you get powers from is her backstory. Kind of, it's a little bit mysterious and tragic, and you don't really know exactly what happened, but it kind of crafts her as a character. So if you played this and then went back, I think that you would lose out on that. But it is a lower barrier to entry. I mean, it's $15. It took me probably 4 hours to get through the single player, and that was doing everything in the single player. And then from there, there's like a bunch of arena missions. The arena missions, they work in the story as kind of act breaks because it's kind of told in flashbacks, basically. So you have the modern time, which still takes place prior to Second Son, but the modern story is her in the jail, the conduit jail with Augustine, and Augustine kind of like trying to train her to be this, assassin. And then the crux of the story, the major parts of it take place in Seattle, but back in time before anything had happened. She already had her powers, so she's not new like Delsin where she's discovering them. She has all her powers, but it's the story of her with her brother and how they were drug addicts and on the run and all that kind of stuff. The story on the whole I enjoyed more than Second Son. I didn't do like a big video review for Second Son, but to me, I know I talked about it a bit in a couple of videos, but to me, the weakest part of that game was the story. And they give you these karmic options between good and evil that don't really amount to very much. They can change a lot of the mission structures. Like, for example, with Fetch, in Second Son, you can, when you're dealing with her, you can choose to have good karma and kind of help her not go on a murderous rampage, or you can choose bad karma and just encourage her behavior and go out and kill guys with her. And that's really like as big as the differences make. The same things still happen. The characters, who lives and dies stays the same. The ending doesn't change. So that was it felt kind of tacked on a little bit. So they got rid of that completely with First Light, which is nice, because they can just tell a more cohesive story and tell their own story. Video games are a difficult thing, especially nowadays. They want to give the player agency and make the player feel like what they're doing matters, and choosing to do this versus this makes a difference in the game. And in a lot of games, that's awesome. But you can really only let that happen a certain amount without making it a choose-your-own-adventure game. So like in the Walking Dead games, for example, you make tons of different choices about who lives and dies and all that kind of stuff, but what happens at the very beginning of the game, what happens at the very end of the game is still basically the same. So in this, they kind of said, you know what, let's take that choice out of their hands and just tell a story. Like in The Last of Us is a great example of, it doesn't give the player choice on whether or not to kill or not kill, but it tells a very compelling story. This does a better job than Second Son did in that. As far as like some of the big gameplay changes from Second Son, this, it's pretty obvious since you're playing as Fetch, who has neon powers, that's all you have. Whereas in Second Son with Delsin, you started out with the smoke, and then got neon, then got video, and then at the end of the game, you got the concrete powers. And that was really fun to switch back and forth. I didn't love how you couldn't switch between them on the fly. You had to, you had smoke powers, and then you had to go up to a neon sign, suck the power out of that, then you had neon, and if you want to get smoke, you had to go find a smokestack or whatever to get the smoke back. That kind of slowed down that action to me. It would have been a lot more fun to be able to flip back and forth on the fly, but I understand from a storytelling perspective why they wanted to make it that way. But anyway, for First Light, you only have neon, so you don't really have to worry about that, and it kind of expands a little bit of the powers. You get a couple of new moves. Her big kind of catastrophic finisher move is a lot more, it looks a lot more powerful than Delsin's was. It kills guys, does the same thing, but it looks a lot more epic than Delsin's did. And then the coolest new change that I really liked, because I tend to do a lot of melee when I'm playing, and it makes her melee more powerful by giving her, like, finisher moves. And those stock up like an ammo in the bottom left corner that you can use, and you refill those by getting, like, combos without getting hit and getting kills in a certain amount of time. And it just gives, like, a flashy finisher move. By the end of the game, even after like 4 hours, it was a little repetitive, but it's a nice, like if you get in a bad spot, surrounded by guys, you can just knock those off by hitting triangle on a guy, and it automatically, like, one shot takes them down. So it kind of switches up the melee combat in a really nice way. And there were some new enemy types in there too, which was nice, and then a new level, I guess. I won't go into spoilers or anything, but there's like a snow level that you get on that's not in Seattle, or I guess not in the city of Seattle. And that was a really nice way for them to switch things up and give some different, graphical difference. So everything's not Seattle, because, it takes place during night and day, which is great. The game still looks gorgeous. It looks just as good as Second Son, if not better. Just particle effects and in the lighting with the rain and how everything is, shiny. It looks really, really great. But the snow level in particular was really great because it really stood out from the Seattle city and really helped differentiate itself from that and give you a little bit more variety in kind of how the graphics worked. But the new enemy types kind of did the same thing. It just helps you switch it up a little bit in addition to like the new power set too. It makes it more fun for people like me that, I platinumed Infamous Second Son. I played that game through twice, put in probably 20 hours, found everything and all that kind of stuff. So it was nice to be able to play this and not feel like I'm not just playing the same game again, because I got a little bit of a new area. The main crux of the game takes place in Seattle in a smaller area that's the same as Second Son, but you have the arena parts in between that are in a new area, and then the snow level thing at the end, which really helps set it apart and make it feel like it's not the same game over again. Speaking of Platinum Trophy in Second Son, I really wanted to get the Platinum Trophy in this game because I'd gotten the one in Second Son, and I'm slowly going back and playing Infamous 1 and 2, and I want to try to platinum those as well. But I don't think I'm going to do it. Because of the arena challenges, after you beat the single-player game, you can go back in and just free roam and kill guys in the single-player Seattle world, but really what they want you to do is go back into those arena missions that they put you in during the single-player and play around with those. It has several different versions of it, like if you're protecting because they're all holograms. You're not fighting real guys, but it's fun because the holograms are actually created by the guy that had video powers from Second Son, so it's a nice little crossover there, but I don't know. It was fun to play through the first time and to go back and play it through a couple of times. There are, I think, 4 different arena modes, and you can play those. If you've played Second Son, you can play them through as Delsin as well, which is nice. But Fetch is her power set's stronger for fighting the guys that you're fighting, so she's kind of the better way to go if you're trying to get maximum score. And that's really what they're trying to get you to do, is hit a certain number of score. So there are trophies for, I think in all 4 of them, for getting 500,000 points in one round, and then there's one for having 10 million points that is cumulative. Now, I'm sure with enough practice you can do that. I've played each one probably 4, maybe 5 times, and the highest I've gotten on any of them was like 350,000. So with some more it's supposed to be hard. You know, it's a trophy. It's not supposed to be easy to get necessarily, but with some more practice and finding out the right ways to kill certain guys and, you know, learning more of the spawns and what enemies spawn and what wave and that kind of thing, I'm sure I could make it to that 500k, but I don't know. It's not that much fun to do that. I would much rather be in Seattle and travel around the world and get more kind of ambient combat that just is more emergent, that just seems to come out of nowhere. And you see, you know, a DUP car go by, and you're like, oh, I'm going to attack this guy or whatever. Being forced into this combat in this arena where all there is to do is combat kind of gets boring after a while, despite the fact that I really like the power set of Fetch. In the game, to level yourself up, you get lumens, which are basically the same as what Delsin used, where you can kind of spec out your points. And as a little side comment, I really liked getting the lumens. In Second Son, they were just these hovering drones that you shot down and then absorbed the power. With the lumens, it's a little bit of traversal puzzles that you need to do. Because she has neon, she can run really quickly, and the game gives these little, like, purple smoke things out of the ground that when you go through them, it makes you go a lot faster and able to jump farther and hover longer and that kind of thing. And so it puts them in weird places in the air, on the walls, where you need to utilize those smoky things to get them, and that makes it just a little bit more exciting and challenging to get those lumens. But that's how you level up, and you get those. You can get additional lumens by doing the challenges. If that's all it was, fine. But like attaching trophies to accomplishing a certain number of challenges or doing the specific challenge and that kind of thing, I don't know. Basically what I'm trying to say there is I'm a little disappointed in the trophies for this. They didn't feel super creative. They were just like, do this number of things this number of times, and I can't say that I'm super excited to go back and play the arena mode. So I don't know. That's kind of where I stand. I really enjoyed the game. In general, I don't know. Like if I went back and ranked or rated, I guess, Second Son, I'd probably give it like an 8.5 on a scale of 10. I really liked the game. It's still one of my favorite games of the year. It'll probably make my top 10 list. We'll see what happens with the rest of the games that come out this year. But First Light, I'd say I enjoyed it a little bit less. I'd give it an 8, like a solid 8. It's still a great game to play, and if the biggest barrier of entry for you and playing Second Son is the $60 price tag, this is a great way to jump in. It's only $15. It'll take you 4 hours longer if you explore the arena stuff. But I still think that in terms of the story, it's better to start with Second Son, then come back to First Light, because I think you'll have a better appreciation for the character of Fetch and for the brilliant acting that she kind of gives in the cutscenes of the game. So there's especially one really emotional moment that was really powerful that Delsin didn't give. You know, Troy Baker played Delsin. He's a fantastic voice actor and whatever CG mocap actor, but that character didn't speak to me as much because he's very, like flippant, like he doesn't really care about anything, and it's hard to identify and feel for a character like that. But Fetch is on the other side. She's a very dark, kind of introspective character that feels a lot of things. So I really enjoyed that kind of difference between the two of them. But those are kind of my thoughts on First Light. It's definitely worth playing if you've played Second Son, or if you haven't. I still recommend going back and playing Second Son first. I mean, if you have a PS4, there's not a ton to play right now anyway, so might as well give it a shot. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. If you've played it, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit the like button and feel free to subscribe. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace out. We going.